pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marty Mantonfell's present. Ed Hedges here.
Sharon Cordy here.
And Laura Leroy. Georgia's on vacation until the 20th. Yep. So if stuff's messed up, it's her fault.
Yeah.
She's not here, so she gets blamed.
Any public comments?
I have one, Nancy Straw from PPCA regarding agenda items 8C, D, J, and K. Reminder, 3 minutes.
I'm going to speed read. Nancy Straw. I want to address 3 different things with you today. The first is regarding the service provider agreement that you discussed at a previous meeting. It's not on your agenda today, but I do ask that you consider revising it before sending it to the Board of Supervisors again. For one thing, I would like you to consider setting the ending date to September 30th, 2025, which is the end of Gateway's fiscal year. I'm not sure when it's going to be approved and executed this year. As you know, things are on hold or on pause. So I would appreciate it if you would do that. It would also allow us time. We have approval process from you to the Board of can't go right from you to the Board of Supervisors. Our board has to approve it before it can go to the Board of Supervisors. So we'll probably be 6 weeks in an approval process once it is ready to go. In addition, I would ask you to reinstate the renewal clause that was section 2.1. That section does not mandate renewal, but it would streamline the process if both of us agree to consider it. If we have to start all over, this agreement that was before you took 7 or 8 months to hammer out. And if we have to start over from scratch, it's going to take a very long time again. So I would ask you to consider putting that back in. The other thing was the date of May 1st. That was in section 3. That was a deadline that was set for both organizations to agree in writing to any modifications to Exhibit B. That may or may not be enough time. So if you would, please consider moving that back to June 1st instead of May 1st. I'm giving us a little extra time for approval this year. The second item is the landscaping subcommittee. This is on your agenda today, 8J and 8K for Sienna and Aviano. They made recommendations to you, and I would encourage you to follow those recommendations. They had input from a lot of people at their meeting, at the landscaping meeting. GSCDD has the funds to maintain both of those properties that they're collecting from Pelican Preserve and taxes through the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. And I think we'll be ready to make a change by then. The property in front of Sienna actually is owned. It's a little convoluted, but it's owned by the community association and the golf course. And we will work that through with the golf course before September 30th. The one on Aviano, we own the property, but we could give a landscape maintenance easement to GSCDD. And the last one, I would just like to reiterate the importance of having a board designated seat on PPAC. In our efforts to build a really cooperative relationship over the last year, there has to be regular contact and awareness of issues that are faced by PPAC. So if we have an individual from the Pelican Preserve Community Association board serve on PPAC, it will only strengthen that relationship over the long term. I know we all want to serve Pelican Preserve residents and improve our community for everyone. Thank you.
So Laura, to that end, I'd like to suggest we swap C and D under 8. In that we need to have the consideration, if we know we don't want to move to people, we have to say whether or not we want to give that 7th seat to our PPCA representative, or if we want to open it up.
I'd like to disagree with that right now. I mean, we've had the application out since November. And at one point we had 3 applicants. We now just have 1 applicant. We keep postponing this and postponing this. I have no problem with if PPCA eventually gets a designated seat, that's fine. But at this point, the applicant that's here has been here for 3 months. Why keep postponing that when we have somebody now with a good resume? Let's consider him.
It's up to John.
Can I just make one comment? You didn't receive any applications until early January. The dates on them indicated that they
It
came in
went
like
out in
January.
December.
No.
Your
well,
applications came in January 4th and 8th, I believe. So they've only been applicants for about a month, John.
But PPCA has never put in an application.
Again, which
What-
is why we
well-
should have that discussion before we open the floor.
And the reason
think
for
you're-
that is because a board designee would not need to apply. If there's an application, it assumes you'd have the right to approve or deny. And we seek a designated seat.
That should be voted on, and it is up to this board,
Right.
depending on how the vote goes.
So how many applicants do we have from the community association?
If we're having a designee, we would not apply, Marty. We would appoint, I can tell you today, that when we're ready to appoint someone, when you approve it, it will be Tom Shaner. I confirmed with him just a few minutes ago, to be sure.
So you already have people on this committee that are part of the budget committee, part of the architectural control committee, and we all report to the board of directors, to the PPCA. So how much more representation are you asking for?
You both would report on the issues that your committees deal with. You don't report PPAC matters back to our board. It's the connection with PPAC that we seek.
Peggy, was that a motion? Was that a motion?
If I didn't state it as
Peggy
such,
made
I
a,
would like.
yeah, she made a motion, but there was no second.
I'll second.
So you have a motion by Peggy to move item D before item C, seconded by Ed.
Any other discussion? I'm very much against that. We're just. Why is it so important 1 month now that you have somebody here? I mean, you'll probably be able to, if the motion passes, within the next few months, have a seat.
Well, I think we all have an obligation to fill the vacancy.
I agree.
And
And I think we would be able to fill that either way. We'd either fill it with a designation or we'd fill it.
well, you
with
know what?
any applicant. So I don't feel that we're shorting our commitment on that. I just feel like you
If we
make one
postpone
move
this again,
and it
we-
obfuscates the other one.
if we are postponing it or do postpone this again, we are shorting our obligation.
We're not postponing.
No, we're not
I
postponing.
just want to have the discussion swapped.
Either way, whichever way we decide to go, it still has to go to the board before the person can take office
Correct. And we've had a vacancy for a long time.
since December 31st.
Right.
Month and a half. 6 weeks.
All right, I have no further comment.
Any other comments?
Bob, can you mute yourself, please? I keep muting him and he keeps unmuting himself.
He's got something to say. We just don't know what it is.
Was somebody commenting on the phone?
No, that was Bob. All right, so the discussion or the motion right now is not to take a vote on whether or not to add the seat. It's just to rearrange the order and flip flop, move the resolution discussion before the PPAC member selection.
That is my motion.
And it was seconded by Ed, so
Any other discussion?
call for vote. Yeah,
I'm with Ford. Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
all right, it becomes item. So item D will now move before item C. So it will go A, B, D, C.
Sort of the way my kids say it there.
All right, before we get, there's any other public comment?
There's not.
All right, Jen? Jen, at this meeting this morning, I heard that you are planning to move from the community, I would like with this whole board to thank you for all the work that you have done. It is not easy.
We will miss you. You've been
We
invaluable.
will.
We will.
You're not telling your replacement how hard it was, are you?
No.
Okay. Thank you again for all your service and good luck with your new community. Any other public comments?
No. Nope.
That's it. All right, approval of the minutes. Approval of the workshop minutes, January 3rd. Any comments from those?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the workshop.
I will second that.
Any comments? All approval?
Aye.
Approval of the January 11th, 2024 PPAC meeting minutes. Anybody want to make a motion?
I did have to make one change to the minutes. Let's see, I'll find where it is. I wrote it in here. There was incorrect voting under item F. I'll find it here.
Yes, I saw that.
Yep, I fixed it. I wrote it into this version of it, so we'll get it corrected. This should actually say. This was Mr. Grega, so I have to flip flop Mr. Steinbeck and Mr. Grega, so. I made that, I wrote the correction in on this version. On the printed out version, but it's not in your agenda that way.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
I'll second that motion. All approval?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All right, financial report.
get to the good stuff.
Do we have a report for December of 23?
Yep. It's your December.
Or I have a question, I
Yep.
guess. The unassigned,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to understand the budget in the last couple weeks. I'll have other questions later, but the unassigned, the footnote says any increase or decrease in the actual revenue and expenditures. But isn't it, to me, as I understand it, or as I interpret the budget, the unassigned includes any unspent budget from this year. So it's really
From the
any,
previous year.
No.
It would roll over into that.
no, if you go back to September 31st, the end, there was only about $1.2 million in unassigned. So this, and if you look then at the December 31st, that went to Gateway, the unassigned had the revenues that we got in November from taxes and the expenditures. So to me, the unassigned is reserves plus 24 unspent O&M budget.
That's not correct. So there must have been an error in the September ones then, because the financials are not audited for the end of fiscal 23 yet, so none of those moves would have been made into your unassigned account.
But then in well, then then there was 235,000 moved out to pay for, and I think October sometime to pay for the road,
Yep,
the emergency access.
We haven't done the transfer yet, because I just checked with her before I came.
Well, in October, the unassigned was 995,000. So I'm totally confused on what our unassigned is actually accounting for. So somehow we got to get this straightened out because it doesn't align. The only way it aligns to me with the treasurer's report that was in that presented is if that includes the unspent 24 budget.
Yeah, the unspent 24 budget is not in your unassigned. That is a separate line item for things that are not allocated or assigned to any specific amount. Or
I
any
don't see
specific
how the
fund.
math works.
Let me check. Maybe I had fat fingers when I typed something in, so I will double check that
Yeah.
and let you know, but I can guarantee you that it does not include your fiscal 24 budget. Cause those are unassigned funds, which means they're not allocated to any specific expense and they are free to be spent as you choose.
Does it include the revenues that we've received from taxes in November and December?
No, those get recorded under revenue, so I'll have to check.
So
I'm not
that'll
an
be-
accountant, but as an engineer, the numbers don't ma-
Yeah,
don't
I
add
probably,
up.
let me check, cause I might have fat fingered something or took it from the wrong line,
No,
so
No,
I
the
will check
number,
that.
I mean, the numbers
But for it to
are
jump from 900,000 to 3,600 is, I must have fat fingered something, so I will check, I'll check my work.
okay. Well, those numbers match what was in the budget reports to see the board.
In our financials?
Yeah.
All right, let me check with Sonia then. Cause I guarantee you that that is not your fiscal 24 budget, cause that won't, that's all allocated in that other annual budget category. So, unassigned means it's not assigned to any budget line item, which means that you can spend it on whatever you want.
So that will be an agenda item for next meeting.
Yep, I'll make sure I put that in there.
Thank you.
And otherwise, this is through December, so this is only 2 months of the new fiscal year.
3, October, November, December.
Yeah.
It's the first quarter.
So whatever's not spent rolls over to the next year, correct?
Correct. And it depends because you guys are set up a little differently. The other funds, everything goes into unassigned. But you have, we made an allocation in fiscal 24 for landscape as well. So their specific chunk of last year's budget, whatever wasn't spent from the landscape budget will roll into the landscape reserves. The ponds rolls into the ponds. And then your capital stuff would go into capital. Everything else goes into unassigned. So normally in the rest of the funds, they only have the unassigned. So all unspent money goes into unassigned, where you guys break yours out a little bit.
Because we have some contracts that are still in play that haven't been acted.
That's what we have to look at, yeah, before that all gets figured out.
What, we had talked once before, and I don't see it unless I'm missing it here, is that all the projects that we've already said we're gonna spend money on it, so that we can kind of keep track of, okay, we got 3 million in unassigned, but we've got 5 million, or
I did not add the encumbered column into your financials. Would you like me to do that for next month? The committees are getting it with theirs, but I didn't put it into the summary report. I can add that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can add that in there.
So it does look
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I can add that.
yeah, I know.
Sure.
It looks better this way. It sure does.
I have the information. It's not a big deal. I can just plug it in.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report? Any comments?
And then there was the budget timeline too. So, we're working through this stuff right now, so I'll have discussions if you guys, we have the project list, so starting probably March. We'll be looking to have you start your budget initiatives and the committees are working on theirs now for projects that they want to do for the next fiscal year that'll come before you guys. So if there's anything that you want to work on for next year as far as capital projects or things that you already know that you'd like to put more money into at this point, normally it comes from the committees to you guys and then you look at it as a whole and then I push it up to the board.
Laura, I think we need a budget workshop early in the process. I don't know if it's in here with us and the subcommittee chairs to sort out what should be in the O&M budgets and what should be in the capital budgets. If you look
Well,
at,
there's no O&M budget.
Huh?
There's no O&M budget. I think an O&M agreement. So,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah, sorry.
our
Yep,
operating budget.
Yep.
Operating budget.
gotcha.
There are a lot of things currently in the 5 years of the capital. There are a lot of line items that to me are maintenance items or kind of small reoccurring, but currently there's like $4.2 million in capital projects in the next 5 years.
Somebody-
And we really need to sort out what items should be in the O&M budget versus what are in the capital budget. Because currently for 24, we have 1.1 million in the capital budget of expenditures. But we're only funding it at 200, the capital reserves at 200,000 a year. And it's just, to me, it's totally out of whack with what the reserve study showed.
But we also have 2 million.
Well, that-
Yeah, you guys opted for this fiscal year to not put the extra money in, even though it was recommended. Actually, the reserve study recommended less than what you guys put in, so.
Right. Yeah, there's 2.8 million,
Right.
but, and then funded at 200,000, that's 3.8, but we've got 4.2 in the next 5 years. So, and there's a lot of,
I think it'd be valuable. I
There-
really do think it would be valuable.
I think there's a
for us
lot
to
of
have a-
things in this
lot of-
capital that should be in the O&M line items and just done on an annual basis. And just one of the glaring ones is the street striping that was done this year. It's actually in both budgets. It's both in, was charged the maintenance, but it's also listed in the capital. That was just one of the glaring things that I saw. But I think it'd be real good to have a workshop to sort all of that out before the subcommittees really start working on their budgets. There's also some line items in the administrative part of the budget that I think ought to move down into the subcommittees. There's a street lighting, which is for the street lighting, electric billing, that's in the admin, but then there's street light maintenance line item in the safety and security. So shouldn't
You're saying
those all be
consolidate?
in the safety and security? So,
Well, and that brings up another question, and I totally agree with you that I think that would be a valuable use of our time. But when we are talking about gathering up and working with our subcommittees, do we, or does staff have a recommendation? Daniel in the meeting this morning seemed to indicate that he wanted to work directly. Doug, did I read that wrong? Yeah, he wanted to work directly with the chairs of the subcommittees to put things into the agenda project management thing, the spreadsheet he made. And I didn't know if we should say that, no, the liaisons should be the ones to work with them or what. So does
Okay.
anybody have an opinion?
I know historically, the individual subcommittees have provided their own budgets initially, which have come before PPAC, and then you guys give feedback on them or ask questions
It's
based on
not
that. So,
necessarily even just the budget. It was, hey, it was the project spreadsheet that he made.
oh, okay.
So,
I'll let him speak for it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't listen. I was doing something
Oh,
else this morning at the same time.
yeah.
I was double booked this morning, so
Oh,
I
that's
didn't hear that.
No, I was just trying to clarify. This morning you made mention that maybe the subcommittee chairs would work directly with you to fill out the project template.
Yes,
And in the past that we, as the liaisons with PPAC, have worked in that capacity. And so I'm trying to see if this is a change, if this is something that we want.
no, it's more so just the agenda management for each committee and subcommittee, but also to track what they're doing inside of the confines of their committee room, right? To be able to keep track of things that are tabled, that are new items, that are recurring items, and to have it in one platform that all people can access now that we've got all the new emails established. That would feed a backlog to say things that we don't currently have budgeted this year that we would like to budget next year, and have a tracking mechanism for us to be able to look at for budgeting moving into the next fiscal year. So I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or change anything. I just want to work a little bit more with the chairs or their designated representative. That's on them.
Well, I
to
just
be able
wanted to see if that was something that we wanted to have any more say as the liaisons within this and work as a trio, or, I mean,
So you-
personally, Doug knows his stuff well enough that I don't, I don't have to handhold him very much. He handholds me.
So the intention would be as well for PPAC to have access to the exact, it's all in one place. It's all on one
Yep.
Excel
And
workbook.
I fully endorse what you're doing.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to see what role you want us to play.
Yeah, I
within
think this is just a more formalized version of what we've been doing for the last few years. It was more like, okay, budget's coming up, sit down, make a list of the stuff that you want to do. And we took, okay, here's our list from this year that we tried to get done. Here's a list from next year and maybe a couple years out that you want to get done. What didn't we get done that we need to push forward? And so Daniel's just put it all in one sheet and made it a much more formal process than what we've been doing in the past.
Especially to delineate between O and M. So to speak on what you were talking about earlier was separating our O and M and our everyday maintenance and operations costs out from our CIP. I would like to formalize our CIP plan and get a little bit more at a depth to at least like a 5 to 6 year CIP plan.
Okay,
That answers your
and then, so we'll just work with our subcommittees to see how they would prefer to work. How's that? Okay.
Hey, if I
All
can,
right, Ed,
just-
Ed, it didn't answer your question, though. I'm sorry. I kind of stepped on your
well,
position.
I can help answer Ed's question a
Oh,
little bit. if I can.
hang on a second, Bob.
Yep.
Somebody changed my settings again. All right, try now.
Okay, from the CIP point of view, the only things in the 15 years I've been on here that we've really spent money out of the capital improvement was the boardwalk and most recently the road. We didn't really have a formal CIP. I know you, and the CIP is nothing more than a plan. It is not a commitment to spend money. The commitment occurs when the subcommittees say that something needs to be done, or when PPAC says it needs to be done. So, you know, the budget comes out of the individual subcommittees to what they see. You guys get to opine on it, either add or subtract. But, you know, I would not take the CIP and say we've got to fund to that level, because that would just take our taxes through the roof. So that's the historical perspective on it.
Any other comments?
Do we have to make a motion to have a workshop?
No,
Okay.
you just have to tell me when you want to have it.
And when, Laura, would you think that it's the most valuable? What, in what juncture in here?
I guess it depends on how early you want to start. If you want to give the subcommittees some time to put their stuff together first, so that they actually have something to bring to the workshop, I would say we could do it like in April and have them work on it in February and March, and then meet with you guys in April. Since the high water mark for the board is June, that gives us April and May to.
April.
I'd prefer to have it sooner so that the subcommittees know, you know, what all should be included in either the O&M or their capital request submittals.
Well, okay. I'll just be quiet.
Ed, are you
It may
suggesting that
not
you
be
guys
line-
lead?
It may not be line item, exact line items, but just the parameters for those to discuss.
Sure,
the
and I think
parameters
that that's the
of those
discussions we can have with the subcommittees themselves. I mean, the intent of the subcommittees was to let them come up with their projects to bring
But
forward.
we have
for
to have
you.
input in.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. But I think my personal opinion is that it's fair to let the subcommittees come up with their projects first and they can come and discuss them with you. Otherwise, you're telling them this is what you're going to do this next year, which kind of undermines the whole point of the subcommittee.
Yeah, that's my comment. Historically, it has come bottom up. And you're suggesting it would go top down. At least that's what I thought I heard.
No, I'm
Can I-
not saying top down. I'm just saying, what are the parameters of what should be an O&M expenditure
Right. And then,
versus what is a capital
and
expenditure?
that's our roles when we're having the meetings with the subcommittees to guide them through that process before it comes to you. And I agree with you. I totally got shot down. I know the difference between a capital and a repair. And that was a very long conversation that we had last year that in the end, I just threw up my hands and said, fine. So I understand.
I agree with Ed that we need to have this earlier than April.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So I would suggest that PPAC do similar to what we do with the Board of Supervisors. So you have your budget, initiatives discussion, give some direction to your subcommittees, perhaps at your next meeting or, a meeting soon, very soon. And that can meet Ed's point of, hey, budget initiatives, I think landscaping would qualify as O&M instead of capital or vice versa. Then that way you've given, some initiatives and direction to your subcommittees. That way they can go and say, okay, this is what we want to work on. Here's our priorities, and get some numbers together, work with staff. I know safety and security's been, plugging away at roads, and we've got some pretty good pricing coming in. So what we had originally planned for maybe 1 or 2 roads, now it looks like we could do a couple more. So I would say have a budget initiatives discussion with PPAC. Invite your chairs if they want to be there. And then they can take that back and kind of do this bottom up approach. This is a new year. I know KW in the past with the O&M agreement, not necessarily with the ponds, but the other committees kind of worked and helped facilitate putting the budgets. So this is a transition year. We're learning, and what we did last year isn't going to be what we're doing this year, and probably not next. So again, that would be my suggestion.
Any other comments?
Well, there's one of the chairs is here. What's your thoughts?
Put you on the spot there, Doug.
I create, but I mean, 70% of my budget is ongoing maintenance.
Can you come to the podium?
Doug Zanner, I'm the chair of the Ponds Group. About 70% of the budget is ongoing contracts that we have in place for maintenance and things like that of the ponds. So, that other part of the budget, in the past, it's been me, manages, we know that the one project we're working on is coming down. We aren't going to spend. We know we're going to do bank erosion next year. Some of that money gets transferred over there. We create a budget. We always in the past have tried to not increase the budget, and put that in perspective. I feel very comfortable coming up with it, working with Peggy, working with Daniel. But I think that it should start with our group, since we know more about what some of the requirements are and stuff like that, at least from the Ponds Group. I feel very confident that the group can put those plans in place and then work with Peggy and work with Daniel to formalize it.
I think where we're at though is, do we want to do it in March or do we want to do it in April? I think that's where we're at. And so what is good for you?
I could do it in March. I'm pretty well know what my contracts are going to be for next year. And I know what projects we're going to work that we have prioritization on. I could do it in March.
And if you use ponds as an example, if you look at the capital improvement plan, capital budget, it's got pond point repairs, $25,000. Well, is that really a capital or is that a maintenance item?
That's a maintenance item.
Well, but it's in the capital, it's a capital line item. Ponds, $150,000 a year. I think that's for the restoration of the pond banks or whatever.
And
Probably
that's in our maintenance.
that's probably a legitimate capital expense.
But it's also in there, if you call it our maintenance budget, our budget of total that we put in place for the year, it's in there.
It's in there.
Yep.
So it's in both places. And then there's stormwater repairs, 25,000, pond interconnect repairs, 20. So I think there's a lot of duplication, things
Yes,
that are in the capital that are also, we just need to get it straightened out going into
Yeah, everything you said so far is in our
maintenance
I'll
budget.
use your word, O&M budget, and it's in there.
Yeah, so it's in both places.
And Ed, to answer part of your question, is ponds specifically has always been set up not to go into capital, but to budget like the 8-year downspout project. That money just rolled over year after year until we spent it. So they knew it was coming. It could have been labeled more efficiently in capital, but we've really never had a capital until last year.
No, and I realize that. It's just I'm looking at what the budget is this year and what it is for the next 5 years. And there's just a lot of discrepancies that we need to really spend the time this year to get it straightened out. And I know on safety and security, the whole idea of road resurfacing and all that is coming up. So we have to really think seriously about our capital projects over the next few years.
Except that too, specifically about the roads, if they have a budget, if the work group has a budget of 280,000, I don't know what it is exactly, but then they manage their road repairs within that budget, and they never touch the capital budget. That's part of what we're doing, unless we get a major $1 million, repair of, Pelican Reserve Boulevard. But when it comes to the individual subcommunities, they can be handled in their yearly budget. At least that's what the path forward has been up till now. And again, we never really had a long-term capital budget, nor did we ever consider funding it to its max.
So when do we want to set up our,
If it's in the capital, if it's in the, not in the maintenance like it is now, and you needed money, can it be easily just transferred? I don't think
Absolutely.
it can. No, what I'm saying is where it is now is probably the best place.
We have the.
It's in both places.
We have no. $1,000. We have that $100,000 in reserves right now dedicated to the ponds. I mean,
Correct.
like she said earlier, it's Pelican Preserve Ponds Reserve. And we have some in there. Now, if it wasn't enough there to handle something, then we're gonna have to look at it different. But for.
Then it could come from your unassigned.
Right. But for right now, we have a decent number in our reserves for the projects that we have going forward, even if they end up being a little more money than we think.
So Ed, would you say that even if they came to us with the budgets the way that they're intermingled right now between capital and maintenance, we should, as a group, when we're doing, we should be able to parse them apart, correct? I mean, that's,
Yeah,
so, I mean, if we allow them to do their process,
You're basically letting them say, this is what we want to spend money
And
on
then we'll
next
say
year.
which bucket.
And then we figure out if it's an operations or a capital.
I mean,
And just so you know, I can't just move the reserves into our budget
no, I know.
without the board okaying that. I mean, that's what we have to do to move it from reserves, Pelican Reserve Ponds reserves, move it into the budget. We come to you and say, here's what we need and here's how much money it's gonna take.
It looks like a lot of the stuff that's in the capital, which was to be funded out of
Right.
our reserves, is included in the O and M budget, so it's
I think
probably not
for-
there.
At least for our group, what you said is
We can
true.
pick that out, but that's, it kind of goes to my point to figure out what the unassigned really includes on the budget, because it's not all, doesn't appear it to me to be all reserves, so.
Any other comments? I mean, you don't need a motion or anything.
No, I guess.
Okay. Any other comments? We can move on.
we just need to set a date, don't we? Aren't we gonna set a budget date?
well, if we shoot for the April one that you were indicating would be,
That gives the subcommittees February and March, and you guys are more than welcome to attend their meetings too if you want to give input. I mean, it's not like you have to wait for them to come to you, but I think that it'll be a good learning exercise for everybody, and Daniel is very good with this stuff and he'll be able to give good guidance to them as well. So I think I personally feel that it's important that we let the subcommittees come up with their own budgets and bring them to you. That's what you've tasked them with, and that's why they were created. I don't think that should come top down. It's historically always come from them to PPAC, and then you give feedback, and then there's back and forth on whether or not where you guys land. But I feel that it's important to let them develop their own budgets and bring their suggestions forward. It's not set in stone. It doesn't have to stay there. You guys can say no, or you can say, I think we should do this, or what about this? But I think it's important for them to do that.
Set a date. Set a date?
Laura, does a district have guidelines or definitions of what thresholds or what constitutes
We use
capital
GAAP.
versus maintenance?
Use gap. So whatever the
We
gap
can-
rules are, so generally
Can you-
acceptable accounting principles.
Can you provide a copy of that?
Sure.
Laura, can we propose then on the 11th of April, which is just prior to our PPAC meeting at 2:00, if we do? Ed, would you say an hour?
Probably gonna take more than that with three groups.
Well, this is the one I'm thinking of. Well, I don't know. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
All the chairs being there.
Yeah,
Just, if I don't need to be there, that works out great, because I am on PTO from the 6th to the 13th and I'll be in Arizona. So,
and we
Not
said
here
it
that
the week
week.
before, the first week in April,
How's
and said a
how's
two and a
Thursday
half
the
hours.
4th look?
it's board meeting day,
Well, we don't like that.
first and third of every month.
The fourth is Board of Supervisors meeting in here.
Oh, that's.
Oh. We could,
I think the value of having you here would be very strong. I
We-
don't,
I could do it on right now, the 3rd for me is wide open and the boardroom is also wide open. So,
I'm wide.
I mean, if you guys want to meet earlier in the day, we could do that as well. I don't see any subcommittee meetings that day. There's no board stuff that day. Currently I have nothing on my calendar, and it said the boardroom is wide open as well.
I have a conflict. I have an Architectural Control Committee meeting up,
What time?
1400.
Well, I mean, we could meet earlier.
Yeah,
We don't
we
have to
can
meet at
meet
2,
at
we could
like
meet at
9.
10, we could meet at now 11, whatever you guys want to do.
9 to 11.
9,
Hey Doug, how does 9 to 11 on the 3rd look?
April 3rd.
Ah.
Doug's okay.
Sure does, okay.
Yeah.
He'll make it work.
Until I'm not okay.
He'll make it work.
So we tentatively
It's
for
too
the
much all- Yeah.
3rd
yeah.
at 9,
Let's
0900.
look at it that way. That's what I would like.
But
The 3rd at 9 o'clock in the
no, 9 to
On April
11.
3rd.
9 to 11.
And we'll have it here
we-
in our boardroom. Yeah,
Yes,
there's room
we'll
to
do.
accommodate everybody. All right. And that'll be a workshop then, correct?
Okay. And you'll invite the chairs of the.
I will.
subs- Thank
Yep.
you.
I will. Or Georgia will. Somebody will. We'll get them in.
Somebody.
They'll be invited. All right, I'll get that scheduled.
All right, could we go to item 7 yet?
14.
You're in charge.
Let's go to item.
That 3:15 is not looking good, John.
Landscape update. There was a report by Mark.
Just made some comments. Yeah. They're chugging, seems like.
Yeah, they're moving right along. He's been, I could say he's been working really hard, following up on a lot of the new plants and trees and things that have been put in by Ameriscape over the last year, making sure that the stuff that died that's within the warranty period is replaced by Ameriscape and that they're not expending extra funds to replace things that are covered under warranty. So he's been busy chasing them down.
And he answered a lot of questions, not a lot of questions today at the meeting this morning.
Okay.
Any other comments? Not, let's go to ponds.
Doug Zanter, Chairman of the Ponds Group. This is my report. You can, if you expand that, my eyesight isn't the best. This is just, from last year unaudited, we had 146,000 that we did not spend. 2 line items stick out there. Number one is the conservation of wetlands. That 40-some thousand dollars was because the fact we renegotiated, we went to bid on that contract and got a significantly less amount of money that we had to spend. And the other one is the stormwater systems. That contract proposal, when contract was given to Extreme Divers, but we were waiting for, they're doing a lot of work for Gateway, and we had to wait till that work was done. So we didn't get it done last year. So if you add those two together, it's about 90,000 of that money is attributed to those 2 line items. But if this was audited, that 140 some would roll over into our Pelican Reserve ponds reserves. But it's still it'll be a while before the formal number is there, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
They're working through the audit right now. We should have it soon.
okay, let's roll up to the next.
Sorry, my mouse isn't cooperating. There you go.
Okay, just so you know, I apologize. A week in advance, I do my report because that's what the requirement is. We had 3 more bids come in. We had 4 bids. And one, Copeland was 91.75. Scott Company was 11,729. Atlantic Southern was 12,850, and Crulified was 22,427. Those were the 4 bids that we had on this asphalt project. I think I presented at the last meeting the 84 feet, and you asked the question, were we doing the whole path?
Right.
But the recommendation from staff, which was the same recommendation that we did in our group, was to go with the low bid because we have an 8-year relationship with Copeland. And that's what we decided to do. It's in the current budget. Okay, and just more informational for you that we're going forward with Copeland at the 91.75 bid. And it's good to see the vendor we've done a lot of work with is a low bid. They've been the last 3 bids, 3 processes. They've come up with low bid. This is the bid process for the repair bid for the banks. We had the bidders meeting. The bid was released on the 19th of January. Last Monday of this week, we had the bid meeting. I was not there, but Al Slicker has been assigned from our group. He's on the ponds group. He's not on our board, but he attended that meeting with Daniel. Daniel's leading this effort. The bids are due on February 23rd. The opening is that day, and then the award we're looking at towards the making a recommendation to CDD board and having approval on who we go with by March 7th. That's where we're at with that thing. I'm a little leery about what the cost will be, but we'll figure that, we'll find that out once we get the bids open. Okay?
So
Let's go
Doug,
on.
I have a question on the asphalt repair.
Yes,
Are you gonna block off the entire pathway from Pelican Preserve?
3 days.
All right. But
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna be able to walk through the preserve and then realize that.
No,
besides-
I see what you're saying. Not just make the person walk all the way down to where we block it off
Right.
and then have to walk all,
Way
that's a
back.
good point. That's a good, because there's nowhere else to go on that path.
Correct.
I wouldn't have thought of that, but thank you for bringing that up. I'm sure, well, you won't be here, Jen, when that's done. So I think we'll have to remind a new person that.
Okay.
A
Thank you.
good point. Good
Thank
point.
you.
Hey, Doug, I'm curious, so your total O&M budget, you're 145,000 for last year under?
Yeah.
Okay, does that money roll then over to the new budget?
No,
It doesn't. So
No.
what you don't spend, you lose.
no, it goes into a reserve.
It goes, okay,
A
but
ponds
it does
reserve.
roll into the reserve.
It goes into a ponds reserve, it's
Ponds,
unique
right,
just for our
right,
group, the ponds
right.
group. And then that I can request that money to be transferred from the reserve over to our budget.
Okay,
Or I don't even know if you call it to our budget, but we can spend it in the calendar year.
yeah,
And you guys have to approve that.
but it does roll into
Right,
something.
I
that's-
didn't lose
Yeah.
it. We didn't lose it.
Yeah.
Because some of those things we have to still pay.
Right.
So,
And that's
yeah.
why I said you guys are a little unique where all the other funds, everything goes into unassigned where you have your stuff parsed out. So anything that Doug doesn't use from his budget goes into ponds. Anything from landscape goes into the landscape reserve.
Right.
Safety and security doesn't have one. Theirs goes into the general at this point. But into the unassigned reserves. So well, along with the rest of whatever's not spent in the 002.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, there's more. Yeah, I saw. Sorry.
Jim Latham is developing the start of a littoral planning plan in some of the new Pelican area. Some of those ponds were oversprayed by the vendor or whatever, they died, the planning died. Without the littorals that causes erosion to occur at a faster rate. We're developing a plan to go after that and plant. We have the budget to do that for this year. We have 25,000. The first two ponds we did, one was $800. The other one was 500 to do the planning. So we got 25,000. So we're in pretty good shape with the current budget to do that. But we're developing a plan to go in prioritization and that to go after that. It's just informational. This is big for me. The 8-year drainage project is done January 26th. I remember, John, you were one of the second community we did to where you live, and you were involved with me on that. That was a long time ago.
Sure was.
Hopefully your mind can go back that far and remember. Mine at times forgets. But we've completed that. There's a little bit of putting some grass in between a few homes where the grass died that I got to clean up. But for the contractors are not on the banks anymore. They're done.
I would like to also just thank you personally. You have been just so instrumental in moving that forward, and it's been a heavy
8
lift,
years.
a heavy lift, and we.
I don't know what I'm
community
gonna
owes
do
you
with
that.
my extra time.
We have an opening on the board.
Oh, no. I was on the board and I chose the ponds group. Okay, go up below. I think you all know that we were assigned or put into the job in the subcommittees, and I think your board too, for 2-year assignments. That they come due on November 10th. Instead of waiting for all 7 members to be elected at the same time, I broke it up into waves. The first one, will be due on March 10th. There's that myself and Mike Causey. We have, I went to a few of our ponds group, went to a few people to see if they wanted to be on the board. I had no takers, but Mike and myself both put in our applications to continue on the board. And the board voted the day. I mean, we had 2, it's like you, we have one seat and 1 person for applicant. We had 2 seats and 2 people. So both were approved by the subgroup to accept my application and Mike Causey's. And I believe you need to have a motion to approve Mike and I to continue to be on the ponds board.
You're item 8A. On the next.
Okay, all right. I just had it in my notes. All right, keep going then.
That's all I got.
That's all I had.
I have a question.
Is it?
Yes,
Does anybody stock our ponds?
yes. We have a budget for fish and we do stock stock the ponds.
And they work with the fishing group to.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I didn't see that as a line item.
It's right here, fish gate. I think that's, oh wait, you had it in there, fish stocking somewhere.
Fish gate.
Yeah, I think it's with that one.
And all the fish are purchased from the state of Florida.
Okay.
Sharks.
What we do, and there's 2, when we stock, we have 2 times the release. We release the panfish first. And then wait 6 months before we release the bass, because if we release them at the same time, the panfish are all eaten by the bass.
Right.
So we wait a while for the panfish to grow a little before we.
How did you learn that?
Huh?
How did you learn that, Tim?
Dealing with people smarter than me.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that.
All right, safety and security update.
Did anybody hit the building again?
If you have any questions, I can try to answer them, but Dean did a pretty good job summarizing everything.
What was the outcome of was it Diamante that they wanted us to go back and look at the curbing on that?
Daniel was supposed to do that. Daniel said he would go out and
did.
relook it.
And
So this is Daniel Potter. I did go out. The curbing was more than within tolerance. And I talked to the person who had the grievance to begin with and walked the entire street with him. Dean Groves as well was with me, and Mark. We did find a gutter that was in need of repair because the concrete box had been just over time had deteriorated. So we're working on getting that gutter, that one specific drainage gutter repaired. But the rest of the valley gutters are within more than enough tolerance. No issues there. Even the person that I went out with to walk the site agreed.
And I think that's scheduled for the next week or two, this resurfacing.
Yeah.
Just,
It is
just,
correct.
Daniel, I sent you another note. There was 2 more drains that was brought to our attention by Nancy's husband in community? Verona. There's 2 drains in Verona that had some breakage in the cement too. That I
Yes,
sent
sir.
that note, that we could do them together.
Received, and we're looking for they're basically 4 in place. So we're trying to get those fabricated. Once I can get them fabricated, we'll get them installed.
Thank you for walking that down.
Any other questions on the safety and security? All right, item 8. Items for discussion, pond subcommittee member appointment. Well, I'm back up.
I don't know if I'm gonna repeat what I already said. I just want you guys to vote.
I would like to make a motion that we accept both Mike Causey and Doug Zanter's applications to remain on the subcommittee. They've been doing an awesome job.
I'll second that. Any comments? Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Landscaping subcommittee member appointments.
Who is this Mark Eversman?
I never see him. I don't think he
No,
does
what-
anything. He's like the biggest slacker on the whole subcommittee.
Who works about 5 hours a day on the committee.
Oh, I know. I'm just kidding.
We're
he
very
was-
fortunate to have Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has a
And
lot of
Cindy said he does a lot.
tremendous credentials.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the 2 candidates.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're gonna skip to D.
And now this was switched. You want to go D to C?
Yep, here's D.
Resolution designating a representative from PPCA on PPAC.
So I'll contend that no resolution is required. All I need to do is apply.
I just feel like we are going to keep circling this drain. And I'm not entirely sure what our risk is if we had somebody on the board. I mean, initially I did not want somebody in a position of chair. I don't want them driving agenda items, but I think having the insight that a PPCA member designee would bring to us can only add value. And I don't see where there's a harm or foul.
I have similar comments. You know, when you think about it, all these acronyms are flying around, PPCA and PPAC. But if you think about it, both of them start with Pelican Preserve. And PPAC, we're responsible, or I guess we help in the guidance as far as finance and taking care of district assets, which are within Pelican Preserve. The PPCA takes care of the assets of the community within Pelican Preserve. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is we're all Pelican Preserve, and I don't see the downside of having a PPCA committee member on this particular committee.
Well,
We've had experience of that before. We had Phil Measy here for a lot of years. Phil did a great job. Now, he was a chairman, but I would agree with you. I would hate to see that board member be the chair of this particular committee. I think we need to keep that a little bit separate. But I see no problem. All I see is an upside versus a downside to have one of their members as far as this committee.
I'd like to make a comment, and as you know, I was not in favor of it at this time. And I shouldn't, I don't know if you people are aware of the attorney's discussion between, you've seen the letters that have gone back and forth. That's why I just like it resolved at the CDD at this time regarding some financial issues. And all I just said is let's postpone that for a little bit. Now, is everybody seen the letters or not? Should we give them copies?
The board has tabled anything related to PPCA until we get the auditor issue figured out.
Resolved,
though.
and
Yep,
that's my comment. It should be resolved shortly and it may be nothing.
correct.
And let's just, wait a week and see what happens. It could go very quickly.
Just a quick, my understanding was that the Board of Supervisors doesn't want to enter into any agreements with Pelican Preserve right now in terms of financial matters. Money changing hands. To me, this is not in that category because there wouldn't be any money changing hands on this.
So can I clarify something real quick? This is Chelsea again. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, well, 2 meetings ago, the board decided to table the new and proposed service provider agreement. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, so that service provider agreement, as we all know, had money changing hands. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, there was a PPERT agreement, the Pelican Preserve Emergency Response Team agreement, that was mentioned, which does not change hands financially. There's no money changing hands. And the board, again, decided that they wanted to table that agreement until the auditing issue was resolved. So you all may discuss this today and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. But from the experience of the last 2 different items that we've taken in front of them, they have chosen to table items until this auditing issue gets resolved.
So I read this agreement also, and it doesn't specify that the representative needs to be a owner or resident of Pelican Preserve.
Is that a requirement to be on the board of directors? for
Well, it says the
PPCA?
committee shall consist of 7 members, each of whom shall be appointed by the board, serve for maximum 2 years, who must be residents of or representatives of property owners within Pelican Preserve or the district. So if you read down further, the committee shall be a designated representative PPCA as approved by the Board of Supervisors. It doesn't say that designated representative shall be a resident also.
No,
It does not
the
say
prior
that.
statement says that the board have to be residents and then one of the members.
So that designated representative could be Jen.
No,
Exactly. But it doesn't say you have to if you're the designated representative. I'm not the lawyer that wrote this. I might be sitting in this chair.
Hey, Tony.
So I have a problem with that.
We can clarify that with Tony, but I mean, it's not spelled out specifically in the second part regarding the committee, but it does say that they have to be residents or representatives of property owners.
So it's also not going to be one of the 5 PPCA board members.
It could be,
It
It
could,
could be.
yes.
Doesn't have to be.
does not.
doesn't have to be.
In case, and I believe they did that because in case that person decided not to run again or ran and did not get on the board, that they wouldn't necessarily have to be stripped from this if the board still supported them.
Well, they don't even have to be on the board,
No, correct, but they have to be the designee.
but they'd have to be, so if the board changes, that person is still appointed.
They can be rescinded. That's my understanding. Yeah. So, yeah.
So it seems to me that, they could have designated a security guard at the guardhouse
Well, we
as
want
being their
somebody to work.
representative. Doesn't necessarily have to be a resident, according to the way I read this. So I think that's an issue.
So you're, if I understand correctly, you're asking it to be clarified that the member
That
designated by
designated
PPCA
representative
needs to be a resident.
needs to be a resident.
And or
I don't know what she's talking about.
Asking that to be clarified.
Okay, shut up.
Board of director or our committee for the PPCA. When is that? Is there a reelection coming up?
It's coming up.
March, yeah.
I mean, is Tom supposed to be reelected at that point or?
It's not even up for reelection this year.
Because how much longer is his? Like,
Yeah, at least till March of 2025.
okay, so what was the plan of the board if that person doesn't get reelected? Do they plan on staying on this committee if they were designated for this committee?
Bill Surica and Faye Formoso are up for reelection.
I think it would be discussed at that time. If next year Tom Shaner decides not to run again, the new board would have to discuss with him whether or not he's going to stay on PPAC or if they want to have someone else designated to be on here.
Designated person. Yeah.
Correct.
It would have the ability to approve or disapprove or shoot it down.
If it's a designee, no,
We have no choice after that.
correct.
We get Tom maybe for a year and then after that, we may not have him.
Could be. I mean, any of you could resign next month.
But sure,
So-
sure.
Yeah.
That's all.
It does say that it needs to be approved by the Board of Supervisors as well.
So at this point, we really can't take any action on this. If there's,
You can make a recommendation. I mean, and we can let the board know kind of where you stand, but they are not moving forward with anything, any type of agreements with PPCA until we get the the auditor issue straightened out, regardless if it's monetary or not.
But before we take a vote on this too, though, I'd like to bring up one other issue. We've got two great, in my opinion, maybe there's only one now.
One dropped off.
Yeah, one candidate then, who's an excellent candidate. I would hate to lose their experience. And I guess I would ask if in fact they don't become a member of this particular committee. We've got all sorts of other committees that are needing help with PPCA.
That's a
And
different lineup.
I understand that. I understand that. What I'm saying is that I don't want them to get discouraged if in fact we decide to go with the recommendation with a PPCA member. For them to get discouraged and say that we do still need their help or the PPCA still needs their help. So,
or conversely, we
Yes.
accept their application for this opening and then still push this on to the Board of Supervisors. And then the next opening becomes the,
Possibility.
yeah.
so anyway, it's just a statement.
So since the Board of Supervisors is not approving any of these issues, I make a recommendation that we indefinitely postpone this item.
Ouch. You want to make a motion to that?
I'd like to make a
I'll
motion to
second that
indefinitely postpone that.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to postpone it. Why is it have to be, why can't it be postponed for a month or so? I mean, why is the big issue that it can't be postponed for 1 month
Can
and
we,
accept the designee that we have an opportunity to have somebody on the board?
can we table it with the addendum that they work on the requirements for residency? That we don't want it just to be sitting,
I can request the edit from Tony, yes.
okay.
Any further discussion?
Was it second? Oh, you second.
I second it. Should we take a motion? I mean, take a vote?
I vote, yes, indefinitely postpone.
I vote yes as well.
I'm going to say no.
I struggle with the indefinitely.
That's in Robert's rules.
Show off.
Those are guidelines.
Which
You can
it generally
revise
means
it.
we can bring it back up at any point.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we could just say postpone until a date certain, and then you decide when you want to bring it back on your agenda. That's better than indefinitely.
Do you want to revise the motion for the date?
Well, you don't have to give a date. You can just say a date certain, and then you can say, when you're ready, you can just tell us to add it back on. So right now, the motion is to indefinitely postpone,
And then I'll,
and we're in the middle of a
Get
vote.
back anytime.
I will
So
vote.
you guys need to vote now.
Yep, they're in the middle of voting. So Marty, you said yes. Alan, you said no.
I said no.
I'm a yes.
No.
The last one. Why don't you guys start?
You have to, you can start anytime you want.
And it dies.
The motion does.
Mhm.
That we
Indefinitely
table it
postpone.
I'd say. No.
Okay, so the motion fails 4-2.
I would like to make a motion then that this resolution be tabled to a date certain. Is that the language? With the revision for residency clarification included.
I second that.
But you gotta mention what is the date certain?
I was gonna take a dart and throw it at the. Let's. When do we believe that all this financial shenanigans will be done at the Board of Supervisors? Within a month, 2 months?
We've been working on it for a few months already, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Let's
So-
just say that we're,
Peggy, so
Yeah.
to answer your question, we're trying to work out and iron a date. We thought we had a date, but now that changed. Regardless of whatever the resolution of that, both boards are gonna have to have some type of approval or agreement or action by the Board of Supervisors on whatever the next steps may be.
so then I will say within 2 months.
So the April meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
And that was you're tabling it to April with the edits of, that they have to be a resident. Okay.
Any other discussion? Let's take a vote. Do you want to vote first this time?
Yeah, yes. I agree.
Yes.
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 No,
Bridger.
what's
Motion
the outlier?
carries.
Motion carries 5-1 with Marty voting nay. All right, so then we move on to C, which is now D. All right, since your last meeting, you did have 2 candidates at the last meeting. Your other candidate did withdraw his application from consideration for the opening on PPAC. So you have 1 opening and 1 candidate.
Still a very strong candidate, so I'm happy.
John is here. Do you want to make any comments?
We didn't scare him off. To me, that shows fortitude.
Do we want to take a vote?
Can we talk?
We need a nomination and a second to, yeah, whenever you're ready to vote.
I nominate that we accept the application for John Barry to fill the current opening.
I'll second that nomination. Any discussion? Take a vote. Do you want to start again?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Motion carries.
Look at us. Kumbaya, everyone. Sorry.
the motion carries unanimously.
I know. Let's make a note of that.
All right, item E, final renewal of landscape maintenance contract. That discussed.
This is just execution of the third year, correct?
Yes,
So we don't need a vote.
Mouse is not cooperating.
Do we need a vote? Or is it just signed application?
No, you need to decide, well, a vote, it makes it cleaner. It'll go to the board next,
Yeah, 'cause
based
it-
on your recommendation.
Because it's the dollar amount that's over you.
Correct. I can't approve it. It's well outside of my approval limit.
Make a recommendation that have a motion to accept the renewal contract and send it to the Board of Supervisors.
I'll second that. On approval, any discussion? On approval? Aye,
Aye.
motion carries.
Unanimously.
Okay, as an answer, it does not include the Sienna maintenance. Is that what we're gonna talk about on today?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we're on item F. GIS conversion for cardiograph. What's with? this?
Cartograph is the system,
Right.
sorry, the district's asset management system. It's what we use to track all of our work orders, like if they have to go over and do things inside of Pelican. We track that, things inside of Gateway proper, we track it in there. Right now, we don't have Pelican's GIS data in our system. We have Gateway's GIS data in our system, but we don't have your GIS data in our system.
Well, and
Is,
I,
is the,
go ahead.
is the intent that we would maintain the Pelican in the Passarella on an ongoing basis and then just periodically update the information
Right.
in this system, or
Your
What-
resident interface is different than the data that we would have inside of our system. We would have all of the information that your residents see in addition to a whole lot of things that they don't see, like all of our infrastructure, which we don't make, it's due to Homeland Security, it's not public knowledge, but
the intent is that the Pelican Passarella GIS would continue to exist.
that would be a conversation that you would need to have because it would come out of your budget to keep it
But
on
the
your
answer
own.
is, Ed, yes, they serve different masters. The Pelican GIS system will continue. We're just trying to mold it into the district system for the cartograph. Different masters.
So there will be.
So, well, Bob's not 100% correct. As of now,
Close
through
enough,
the end of
close
the
enough.
fiscal year, your stuff will continue. We're not going to take the site down. So
It's
I'll tell you
close
that. So
enough.
you'll still have it. It's up to you if you decide for the next fiscal year to expend dollars to continue to update it.
Don't we pay for that already?
In your current budget, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So for the
if-
past, so I said through the end of the fiscal year, yes. And then it's up to you if you want to keep putting dollars in to keep your Pelican, the one you access through your website, updated. What'll happen with this cartograph is that we have, there's an interface called See Click Fix, where if you're out walking and you see a crooked sidewalk, you stand there, you take a picture, you click it, it goes right into cartograph. We get it here, we send someone over to take care of it. And that's what we're needing the GIS data for.
So why doesn't Gateway pay for this to populate their own system instead of coming to us to do it?
Chelsea? I told her to be ready.
Thank you. Chelsea?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
These are Pelican assets, and eventually all district assets will be included in Cartograph. The district is paying for all of the Greater Gateway side of those assets that Passarella has been working on for a 4-year contract, and so Pelican needs to pay for its portion of their assets within the Cartograph system as well.
Again, why do we get singled out and not, I mean, this is an administrative overhead. Don't we already pay our portion of the administrative overhead?
You pay a percentage.
Correct.
So
I
we're
mean-
already paying the 14% towards cartograph. So why should we have to pay again?
You know what? We'll have to look into that because I believe with the accounting software, Laura, did we not split that amongst across all funds? So this would be a similar situation.
The cartograph?
No, your accounting software.
Oh, you mean like when we purchased the accounting software package? Yeah, it's shared across all the accounts, all the funds.
Is it drawn out separately as a?
You pay 14%.
Right, so it is in our 14%.
No, the accounting software she was asking. So not Not the GIS bill, not the contract to move this stuff over. or
I'm
to convert it.
asking, was there a separate line that was 14% of the software, your accounting software? That
In the shared costs, yes.
it was in the shared 14%.
Yeah, see, when you look at the budget or look at the financials, the stuff that's at the beginning, anything that says administrative or administration in it, you're paying 14% of that. So those are overall gateway of,
Right.
you benefit from it, everybody here benefits from it, so you pay your 14%. And that's the accounting software, the upkeep of that is included in those administrative costs.
And so how is this
Basically.
different?
Yeah, Cartograph is still part of that 14% for the district. We're paying that.
Cartograph is actually being funded through currently it's being funded through the utilities fund. So you're not paying
Well,
into it
Then why wouldn't we put the utilities fund to pay for this?
because you
to
don't
merge.
pay into the utilities.
Oh,
Not
no,
everybody
no,
does.
no, we do.
Not everybody does.
Not everybody, but we do.
I guess part of my question is, we have this agreement with Passarella for the Pelican GIS, and we're maintaining that, and we're updating information in that. And then this duplicates some of that information over into your cartograph system. But then on an ongoing basis, we're going to continue to provide updates and, new street signs go in, new this and that, updates to the ponds, aerators. They get updated in the Passarella. To me, once this initial transfer happens, there's going to have to be a periodic transfer of updated information into the cartograph. Otherwise, or you have to start maintaining all the information in cartograph. And I have no clue how all that is projected to occur or.
Ed,
Yeah.
I think the issue we have right now is that all of the data set that Passarella has been compiling for you all for many years is not in the right form that we need for Cartograph. So it's going to take Passarella some time. But moving forward, now that we know what form is needed, when Passarella does their update of your guys' front end website, we automatically say, no, we also need it in this file as well. And so we can make that request now. But as we've launched Cartograph, Utilities has used Cartograph over the last year. We're pushing the public works side. We're getting you a maintenance person, hopefully sooner than later. This work order system will also it's an asset management work order system. So, we can go back and look and see about taking it out of the general fund, but typically everything Pelican related comes out of Pelican, so we wanted to put it in front of you. If you guys don't want to pay for it, then we can go back and reevaluate and potentially take it up to the Board of Supervisors and let them vote on it.
It just seems like there's going to be an ongoing cost to move the data from the Passarella to the cartograph on an ongoing basis. So,
Well, what they would do is they would take the data and just put it in two formats. It would go in the one that they need for your system, and then they just do it in their file.
They won't do that for free.
Yeah.
No, but it shouldn't be bad going forward because they'll have the formats all laid out. It's a naming convention at this point and a mapping.
Laura,
So,
I've dealt with this for 30
yeah, no, I get it. I know.
There is costs and issues associated with it.
I guess a bigger question for me is, you guys went down the path of Cartograph, and we don't know what the functionality of that tool set. Could it actually take the place of our GIS? I mean, that would be the other side of that question. Is can it move the GIS over to that and serve the same function for us?
Well, the Pelican system is far more intensive than the district system.
Well, today it is because of the amount of assets they've got in it, but what is the full functionality potential?
So
They're never going to put in the things that we have.
Can I please answer? So Peggy, I don't, like Bob alluded to earlier, two different masters, the Cartograph is a work order asset management system. Does the Camarel sign get hit 3 times a year and it cost us X amount of labor, X amount of whatever to replace? Whereas the Passarella system is more of a front end user interface. I want to go and look who owns that Camarel sign. And then you can go and switch the different layers. So really they do, like Bob alluded, it serves two different masters. But this $15,000 is going to come out of somewhere because we have to get district assets that are within Pelican Preserve into Cartograph. That's the next step. It's just a matter of, does Pelican pay for that, or does the 001 general fund pay for that? And that's, we're asking for your direction. If you say you guys don't want to pay for it entirely, then we'll, like I said, we'll take it back and we'll go to the Board of Supervisors and ask for their direction.
Well, then I would make a motion that we do not authorize payment for this, as it seems like it's a bit of double dipping in my mind. And ask if they find alternate funding.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. I think it might be helpful too if we could get a demonstration of the system and what it might, the Cartograph system, so we have some idea, understanding of what functionality it provides and what benefit it might provide in that too.
This system is not intended to be a public accessed system. It's only intended for
Understand.
staff. But we'd be more than happy to, try to show you a demo or show you a sample. Ed, I know you geek out on that kind of stuff, so.
But we also, on the Passerella system, we also have a work order as part of the pond system and that we currently use. So is there duplication there? Would that move over? There's just a lot of questions that we need to
Yeah.
understand.
And we weren't engaged in the initial discussion, so I can't answer that. Although I set up the other system.
Like my 2 cents on the difference between the two.
I would love your two.
All right, so this is Daniel Potter. Working with GIS, ArcGIS in the past, it is a tool that you can use both inward and outward so that you can set settings on layers. It does asset identification, which is something that I think we desperately
definitely
need
need.
across the entire spaghetti bowl of things that have come and gone. So it identifies where things are located, who owns them. Now, Cartograph goes another step further. Cartograph does the life cycle management of said asset. So once
Depreciation, the whole.
it does the appreciation, it does when a work order, so it's also a two-prong set. It can be a work order system that as soon as I go touch an asset and I fix it, I rehab it or I refurb it, I can now apply that in Cartograph and keep a record system. It is the system of knowledge for the asset management of all of our assets across the board. GIS does not do that. GIS gives you very broad layers and you can look at things by layers. So if I just want to look at stormwater, I can look at stormwater and you can turn on and off layers however you want.
How do you
It does
deal
more
with?
than that.
It does,
And
but
you can identify assets and
it does, but it doesn't identify the criticality of the assets. It doesn't tell you lifespan of assets, and it doesn't tell you a planning metric of how to get to knowing when I need to replace things before they get broken and being a proactive approach.
Will this asset or will this system be open to outside vendors though?
No.
And see.
So the GIS portion, it goes hand in hand with Cartograph. So GIS would be able to, outside vendors to be able to see and the public to be able to see. We've already got the Passerella up on our website right now, so people can see it from a public view.
But you don't do the problem reporter or problem manager.
That's what the C-click fix will be.
Correct.
Right, but we have our outside vendors using that to show us when they finished the tickets. And that's what he's saying, they would not have access.
Anybody can access C-click fix.
Yeah, C-click
Yeah,
fix.
that's public
Two.
facing.
To submit, but not to update, I'm assuming.
That I can't speak to. I'd have to
Okay.
ask our.
Well, see, these are the kinds of questions that I would have.
So it's an internal organizational tool. Cartograph acts as a asset management tool internally. It's not a work order for outside vendors. What it would do is it would create work orders for, say, utilities to go action an item. Somebody reported something in C-click fix. If there is a sprinkler broken in this irrigation and I need somebody from Gateway to go fix it, it would come into Cartograph as a item that needs to be addressed with a notification. And then somebody like myself would have to go in there and assign it a work order to an actual asset. So we think of assets too as equipment and people. So we can track time of work that's being established, but we can also track our parts and equipment that go along with it as well for the overhead side.
So on the surface, I would agree with you. They serve two different functions and I don't know that we could ever reconcile, but the question then would remain, is there another option within Cardgraph? I mean, it's a discussion for down the road.
Absolutely. So I hope I helped.
It did, thank you.
Can you repeat the motion?
Peggy made a motion to not approve the contract and Ed seconded it.
Any other discussion?
Is that a harsh way of putting it? Do we need more information before we make a decision on whether or not we want to approve it, or?
I
Should
don't
we
think
table it?
anybody, I mean, what he's proposing has got extreme value. I mean, from an asset manager standpoint, which I served for years, I understand this. But what I have issue with is that we're already paying 14% of administration overhead. And the rest of the community in Gateway is not getting a surcharge to have their data loaded in. And we are saving them a ton of time by having the data readily available and just needs to be imported in a change of format. So my statement is that us spending 15,000 is basically just making it very, very easy for Gateway to move forward because we've got deeper pockets.
So what does that do if in fact we don't approve it and we don't put the money up to begin with? Where does that put us?
I think Chelsea said that it would go back to the
We'll go to the board and
Gateway
they'll decide.
board, and they would determine whether or not it comes out of, and they could kick it back to us if they don't agree that it should come out of the general fund.
Okay. All right.
Is that right?
Yep, it's just your recommendation that we're bringing forward at this time. So
And the Board of Supervisors could say, no, we want this to come out,
All right.
and then we'd be
So
where we're at.
we're putting the onus back on them to come back.
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
So the motion by Peggy and seconded by Ed is to not approve the funding for this project to come from Pelican.
Any other discussion? Big vote. Vote at this end.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries
Unanimous.
And
unanimous.
Dan, it is not that we don't support the work, it's just the funding. So, you know.
It's gonna happen. I mean, it's just where we get the funding.
Item G, Pelican Preserve project updates.
Any questions on any of these? This is the new sheet that'll be in here monthly for your meetings. Each of the subcommittees will see their respective sheets during their meetings. This is the document that Daniel was referencing that'll be available. We're working on a SharePoint site, and now that's another reason why you all have Gateway email addresses, because that allows you to more easily log into that page to look at this. So this document will live there. You'll be able to look at the overall PPAC stuff. If you guys want to have projects as PPAC that you want to get done, the landscape is on there. There's a ponds page and there is a safety and security page.
And this may be more of a, if you stay on the safety and security, I guess a lot of my questions are, there's some of these are broad categories, like street sign repairs. But there needs to be a list of all the individual street signs that need to be repaired and what their status is, and whether or not there will be a drill down capability or whether we have that level of detail so we know.
Sure.
Because a lot of those things come in. We all know different things that need to be done or suggestions that need to be done, but we don't know if they're on any list or not currently.
So this is we've just started this sheet. So this is a very high level view of things right now. This is not anywhere close to being a finished product, nor will it ever be a finished product. It will always be a work in progress.
And it's like streetlight repairs. I mean, we had Cypress Grove out for a few days here, and then it got repaired sometime in the last 2 or 3 days. But it'd be nice to know, have that as a item that, hey, they were out, when it was reported, when it got fixed, and what in the hell did they do? Because, the stuff is, there's a lot of Band-Aid fixes and other things. We really don't know what's going on, and nothing really tells us what's going on in our community. And this list might be able to do that if it's expanded with more detail. So, and I don't know if it's drilled down with
To the
additional detail and summaries or what.
Yeah.
Would there be a value to have estimated cost in there too?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, to me, it'd be important, but
There's nothing for us to vote on here.
Nope.
Correct.
No. Going in a good direction.
All right. Anything else on this?
Any other discussion? Move on. Streetlight ownership, Palazzo. Maintenance responsibility discussion.
Let me just speak.
Go ahead, sure.
I could speak to this, Plaza, when the, street was turned over to the district, everybody assumed, or that they assumed that the streetlights went with it. There are private streetlights owned by Palazzo. The electric meter serves the streetlights and the light for the fountain or the monument and also the irrigation. But the HOA had asked for, and the safety and security is recommended taking those over so that all the lights, all the other lights in all the other neighborhoods, pretty much, got another one coming up here for Azura, are Florida Power and Light paid for by Gateway. So this would convert these to Gateway assets with electricity paid for by Gateway.
Are they
No.
Florida Power and Light now?
They are, no, they are
They're private.
private, just like private lights on Pelican and that. Whether or not they become Florida Power and Light will be a part of the whole street light
That's for
discussion.
another discussion. Yeah.
But these lights, like all the other, they're outside the road right of way within a utility easement, but they run right along the street. And between this one and Azura, all the other neighborhood lights are paid for by Gateway.
Even Sienna?
Yes,
Oh, you said that so definitively.
yes. I mean, that's another anomaly issue, but
So how much is this gonna cost a year?
50.
So why would we approve this if we still haven't resolved the castle?
This is a different issue, that this is not being paid for by PPCA. This is something that the HOA has been paying for, unrelated.
Right, but now you're asking for the district to pay this $1,500 a year, right?
But this is
Correct.
within her level of acceptance. We don't.
And it doesn't have anything to do with any dollars exchanging between us and PPCA. It's where we would be taking the bill over from Palazzo.
it's basically taking over responsibility, ownership and responsibility for the streetlights and paying the electric bill, which covers the lights, the lighting for the monument and the lighting for the irrigation. And in all the other neighborhoods, Gateway is paying for the neighborhood lights, the monument lighting and the irrigation controllers.
This makes us more in
Consistency across. Currently, Palazzo is paying for a portion for these lights and a portion of all the other lights in all the other neighborhoods through their HOA assessment. Or actually through their tax dollars.
Do the CDD assessment.
CDD
Yep.
tax dollars, yeah.
I'll make.
So they're kind of getting double dinged.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal as written, to accept the streetlights.
I'll second. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Alan can do it.
I don't care.
Alan says he wants to say.
So Marty and Alan got it. Okay.
Got it.
Sounds a lot like.
Any other discussion?
The only other point I would say is this isn't asking for any reimbursement of prior expenses because it was just part of this transfer. There are other
That comes up-
corrections going on that are looking for reimbursement, so,
That's another discussion
yeah.
coming up shortly. All right, so you have a motion by Marty, a second by Alan to accept the ownership and maintenance and have the bill transferred over to the CDDA.
Any other discussion? Take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Back to L,
Aye.
same thing, right?
We're on aye,
I'll
yep.
I'll speak to this, but
They
I'll,
want reimbursement.
but I'll abstain. There are 5 lights on Azure that when we did the streetlight inventory, these were not in the, we found out that they weren't in the Florida Power and Light, and that the HOA had been paying for these. They're Florida Power and Light lights. The HOA had been paying the electric bill for them for some reason for a number of years. So this is asking for basically the district to take over the payment for those lights on a go-forward basis, like they're paying for the lights on everybody else, and to provide a reimbursement for the last 4 years.
This is a motion to correct the mistake, basically. It
Correct.
never should have been with the HOA. It always should have been with the district.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation to bring on board the Azura lights and do the reimbursement up to the 4-year max.
I have a question in regards to what is the 4-year, what's the total maintenance of it then?
$25 about $125 a month, yeah.
So
About
times 12
67.
times,
They're
6,700.
saying it'd be about-
What it says, so.
oh,
It's about, right here,
67.
about
Okay.
6,700.
I know.
I think they're currently asking the HOA to document what the payments have actually been, and that's why it's,
Yeah, we're working through proof of payment right now.
Yeah.
So we have copies of all of the bills for that, the last 4 years, and we're just working on proof of payment right now.
Should we amend the motion to say as documented or anything by proof of payment?
This says approximately.
Just says approximately.
So based on what you're finding.
Should be close, right?
It should be close, yeah.
The motion has in it reimbursement to the HOA up to 4 years of invoicing contingent upon producing proper documentation.
Right here, yep.
So why should we reimburse them?
Because it was a mistake. And the homeowners had to pay twice.
No.
Anybody else live in Azura?
Any other discussion? We have a motion, we have a second, take a vote, start this in.
I'll abstain since I live on Azura.
You could just ask if anyone's opposed and then you're done. So,
Anybody opposed?
I'm opposed.
you got
Anybody else?
4 yays, a nay, and an abstain.
Do we have enough? One,
Yeah.
with your abstention?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sienna.
Already know. So it passes 3-1 with Ed abstaining,
item J,
or 4-1, sorry, 4.
Sienna landscape maintenance discussion. Where are we there?
All right, so Sienna, the district has been maintaining that area of land, and as Nancy mentioned earlier, it does not belong to the district. It belongs to a combination of PPCA and the golf course. This one here has that we are gonna give as of March 15th, which was a 90-day notice, we were gonna ask Ameriscape to cease maintenance of that area and bill it. Obviously, the billing to the district would cease as well for that particular area.
So the ownership is with Sienna and the golf course or with the
PPCA, PPCA and the
Sienna
golf
doesn't,
course.
isn't gonna get hit for this, okay. That's what I'm confused about, yeah.
So it's only just until for 3 more months and then it'll transfer.
Well, the letter that was sent said that as of March 15th, 2024, so that was 90 days after the letter was sent on December 14th, saying that we were giving them 90 days notice that we were gonna stop maintaining it.
But the landscape committee recommended finishing out the
fiscal
contractual
year.
year.
Then
Yeah,
That seems good, Grace.
And their contract extension that we just approved does not include this in next year's.
So it would run through the end of September 30th, which means since we've already allocated those funds and they're already paid into their taxes for this year, they would continue to pay for the maintenance, pay for the maintenance of it through the end of September. So I guess it's up to you if you want to do the motion as submitted, or if you want to change the motion, the requested motion.
I know there's a lot of meetings on this, and so what was it decided who would actually pay for it then if?
That needs to be worked out yet. So Nancy said then it's between them and the golf course.
The,
So Sienna's not part of having?
No, they don't own it, so.
but in some other look, if you look at the Pelican Preserve covenants, there is a section in there that says that the property abuts a lake that the neighborhood association or whatever has to maintain up to the lake. So the area between the Sienna, this is all an area of ongoing discussion, but it's according to our covenants, as I read them, it could be that Sienna is still responsible for the area from their parking lot to the lake. You know, per our now, but they wouldn't be on the necessarily on the north side of the lake.
Can you
Right.
show the picture of the area? again?
Yep. So the recommendation from the landscape committee would be to
Gateway.
we would revise the letter because they had asked that we extend the maintenance of it through the end of the fiscal year. So through September 30th, we would send a revised letter with that new end date on it, just letting them know that, hey, you got 8 months basically to work it out. You know, at the end of September, the district will no longer fund the maintenance and they'll be responsible for figuring out how it'll get taken care
With
of.
Golf Course Sienna and the
What's the
community
cost for
association to
that?
figure it out.
What's the maintenance cost for it?
Yeah, 9,400
Anyway,
annually. It's almost $10,000.
785.
Sorry, these maps throw it all off.
That's what the Meriscape?
That's what the Meriscape, yep.
Does the Meriscape do
9,420. I don't think Ameriscape does Sienna. I can't remember what the discussion was from there. I think they have someone else. But anyway, they'll be covered through the end of the fiscal year. So they have until the end of September. If you choose to go that route, we'll send the new letter with the new end date. And then effective with the new fiscal year, then that would no longer be included in your assessments.
And please keep in mind, Jen Lewis has notified us that the community association is soliciting quotes for their own HOA landscaping. So they may not end up with a Meriscape regardless, at the end of whatever the time period, that you choose.
But if this is still under negotiation, why are we trying to make a decision on it now?
Well, it's not.
The question at hand, so this land is not the district's, period. So do you want to continue to maintain it as a good grace gesture? Or stop effective the 90 days notice that we gave back in December? So staff recommendation is that we do not own the land or any abutting land in this area. So staff recommendation would be to cease at whichever date you choose.
Dan has a comment.
Jen Lewis with KW. So I did go out to bid with 4 landscape contractors, drove through the community with many of them. I got Ameriscapes back, basically, was the only contract that came back. It's not cost effective for the common areas of Pelican Preserve that are scattered over 1,100 acres for a landscape contractor to cut a small parcel,
Yeah.
put the equipment in a truck, move the truck over to the other part of the community, take the equipment back out of, it's not cost effective for them. So because Ameriscapes is already on site for Gateway, it's much more cost effective for us to stay with Ameriscape. So that looks like that's where we're gonna be going.
Jen, are those contracts in sync? Because what the Ameriscapes has only one for Gateway only has one more year.
They were both the last time they went out to bid, they were both put out at the same time.
Yeah.
With the same term.
Ours expires at the end of March, however, and I did talk to Marissa at Ameriscapes just to give her the heads up that we may need to, depending on which way this went, at some point, we would have to add in, not that whole parcel, because that's not all of ours, but a portion of that parcel would have to come into our contract.
And then the golf course would have to take care of it.
Yeah, or see. There's has to be discussions.
So I guess there's basically two questions. It's, do you want to continue to maintain it or not? And if not, do you want to honor the original 90-day timeframe that we gave, or would you like to extend it?
I move that we adopt the landscape committee's recommendation to continue to maintain it through the budget year.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Why don't you start?
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
hold on, Ed, please clarify, that is through the end of the fiscal year.
Fiscal year,
September 30th of 2024.
budget year, fiscal
Budget
year.
year. I heard budget year.
I said aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we'll get an updated letter sent out to them, letting them know that we will continue to maintain it through the end of September of 2024.
Please send a letter to PPCA as well.
Sure, got that, Chelsea? Randy, whoever's sending the letter
No,
out.
I didn't, I'm sorry, they weren't at the mic, I didn't hear.
She said, could we please send it to carbon copy PPCA?
Of course. Of course.
They're saying it should go to them and not Sienna at all.
Item K. In a neighborhood park maintenance responsibility. Comments?
Is this any different than getting an easement for like a villa or any of those? Why is this just standalone? So we've adopted how many easements for maintenance?
Where are we at? Can you
Sorry,
bring it up? You're
it's a-
bouncing
yeah,
around
the-
here.
I'm trying to get to it. This program is very difficult when you have huge maps in it. It makes everything else really tiny. We are currently, Mariscape is mowing back there, yes.
But nobody's really maintaining it other than mowing, is what I've heard.
And it does not belong to the district.
Is this the park?
Yes.
The community association owns the parcel. The district has been maintaining it for years. There are a lot of other open space parcels, buffer parcels and other things that the community association owns, but then the landscape easements have been granted to the district to maintain those. So I think what the landscape committee is recommending is that you go forward and get a landscape maintenance agreement for this parcel from the community association, like similar to the ones that currently exist on a lot of other community association owned buffer parcels.
So why don't we ask Tony to see if we can get the land over to the district and make it a district asset?
Is that something the district would even want?
Okay,
Nice
if I can chime in here, I have discussed this parcel with Nancy and Fay, and Tony is drawing up language, which we will present to the community association. That again, as Ed said, for consistency, that this would be conveyed to us to maintain. So depending on the result of that, then it'll be ready to come to you guys.
Conveyed as an easement, conveyed as ownership.
That's up to
Can you
Tony.
clarify?
Whatever he says is the best for the district. And as long as the community association agrees, I don't know that parsing the words makes that much difference. I'm not sure. But I know it has both landscaping in here. It has irrigation. It has some parks, so there's concrete. It's a big chunk. So whatever the easiest thing to do is, and the most consistent for the district, we'll get from Tony.
Well,
You can see
PPAC
there's three recommendations under here.
Can I make a motion before we have a bunch of discussion? I'd move that we accept the land base or the landscape subcommittee's recommendation that the district request a landscape easement and take over maintenance responsibility of the area. And
So that's landscape. You don't want to take other things, Ed?
landscape easement.
And why
Yeah,
wouldn't
you just
we?
want, you just
wanna
want to do
have-
landscape without regard to anything else? I don't know that that makes the most sense, but I'm open.
What's your
What-
swap?
what-
I'm sorry. Jen Lewis
Irrigation and
said
landscape, I mean, that irrigation is all part of the landscape. That's
There's
how
a
all the other landscape.
Very
easements are.
large pathway that goes through there that's all pavers as well. So it might have to be some maintenance and
Yeah.
and
There's a lot of
Pelican
maintenance
pays
that
for the
needs to be
dog
done.
waste station in there already. So the dog
That-
waste
that's why-
station, all of,
Well,
Let Tony
That's
make a
our job.
proposal and let's PPCA respond.
No, hold on, that's inappropriate. The attorney only does
Yes.
legal documents, and he takes direction from the district, the Board of Supervisors, which in essence takes direction from PPAC. So I would suggest, like Ed made the motion already, that you make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, who can direct Tony to draft whatever document based on your recommendation.
That's not what we've done every place else, Chelsea, but okay.
well, for me, I mean, I guess I'm looking at this, the recommendation of the landscape subcommittees to request a landscape easement. And I know a lot of the landscape easements that have been written include maintenance of the irrigation, landscaping, structures, that all maintenance of, it says maintenance for the area, but not ownership, not a transfer of ownership.
I talked to Mark.
I'm looking at some of the easements, Ed, and I don't
Bob,
see anything
can you
about
just,
irrigation.
can you? I'm just mute him.
Yeah.
He made some strong comments that it needs to go back to Pelican, not to the district, that there is numerous things that transpired over the months, the years of maintaining this property being very excessive. He just got, I think recently, something in an email talking about the paver issues and irrigation issues are things that need to be replaced in the upwards of $15,000. He said in the past, there's been like $15,000 of irrigation that had to be repaired, and he doesn't.
The irrigation there was out for about 9 months.
Yeah, and there were
After
huge
Hurricane Ian.
repairs and huge costs, and he really believes since it's owned by Pelican, it should be maintained by Pelican and not the district.
so the irrigation, Jen Lewis with KW, the irrigation out there, when I got here, we were trying to identify who owned it because I thought it was a cul-de-sac. And so Bob was in the office and he was showing me the map. We were going through it and I pointed to that because it did in landscape contract with Ameriscape. It was in the green circle, which meant Pelicans as identified. And so I was trying to figure out maintenance on it and things like that. Bob did go back to Tony. Tony came back and said, no, it's gateways. So there was some confusion there in the very beginning. And then we had the irrigation valves were basically on a 9-volt battery backup. And
Welcome to
so the
Gateway.
gate,
Yeah.
so the irrigation was terrible out there because they were constantly replacing batteries. So Mark did work with someone here at the district. They bored underneath the road. They put about $16,000 worth of electrical in there to make all those irrigation valves now electric. So now they're all coming on when the programs are running, they're running. So the grass is done much better out there. I agree that it is in disrepair. The pavers out there are very black. They have not been maintained. The Pelican Preserve, though, does have the contract for the super scoopers, the dog waste removal. So we just replaced the new station out there at that area. But the pavers definitely need some sort of work. Well, they went out and they didn't power wash it. He doesn't want to power wash it because he's afraid it's going to tear up all the sand. But there is a product out there. If you leave it sit for a couple of weeks, it will actually kill the mildew spore down into the pores of the pavers. It's just that it's been so neglected that it's just going to take a little bit of time to try to get them
I
back
get,
to their original.
okay, no matter,
for shield and the wet and forget on the brush beavers with no reason.
They put the citrus shield on for one day.
Yeah.
That agent needs
It takes
weeks
longer.
for
yeah.
it
They got
to,
a day later, they came back,
Yeah.
and they did a power wash in which they removed, you know, they.
I've had pavers in just as bad a shape in condo associations for an entire driveways, and we put the citrus shield in 2 weeks, they were like brand new pavers. So I think it's a more cost-effective way to go back and put the agent back on there, leave it for a couple weeks, and then determine what needs to happen.
Okay. Irregardless of who does the
Right.
irregardless of who maintains it, the Pelican residents are going to pay for it, whether the district or
Right.
the community association. I approach it from a consistency across the neighborhood. Almost every residential neighborhood has buffer parcels between the residential lot and the street. And those buffer parcels are owned by the community association, but there is a landscape maintenance agreement or the landscape maintenance dedication or whatever is with the district. You know, and there are a lot other along all the boulevards and that so this to me is consistent with the community association on it, but the gateway, us providing the maintenance is consistent with all the other, buffer parcels between the residential and open spaces where, similar to that.
But I'm hearing that the safety and security is recommending, or is it landscape, but then Mark himself is saying don't.
Mark.
Okay.
But the Pelican, whether or not it's community association maintains it or gateway, the Pelican residents are going to pay for it.
Yeah,
Oh, true.
Mark did.
But the committee just made the recommendation.
Yeah, I know, but I think,
I think because it was relayed that we may have to replace all of those pavers may have to come up and all new ones go down. I honestly do not think that we need to do that. First of all, they're very porous. We're getting reports back from Treviso that they're a slip hazard. I don't really think that that's the case, but I think that there are other maintenance avenues that can be taken before ripping out all of the pavers.
And the district is maintaining the other park area that's across from the entrance to Azura. There's kind of a little park area there that the district is currently maintaining. So, I mean, it's just consistency. In all this inventorying that I've done, I found so many inconsistencies where things were done very differently at different times, and to try to insert some consistency across on how things are approached across things. To me, community associations should retain ownership and the district should get an easement to maintain it.
So then,
And if there's a lot of repairs, it's just like it's just like streets and everything. I mean, we're having to spend big money to redo streets, and sidewalks other places. So, and maybe if it's a sidewalk, maybe it should come out of safety and security as not landscaping as a sidewalk issue. So
what do they mean by give the PPCA general oversight? That to me sounds counter to giving an easement to the district. If you give an easement to the district gets to decide.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay.
One comment I would make, Jen said that at one time, Tony said it was the districts, this particular island. Tony has never said that. I totally agree that it ought to be maintained by the district using the same logic that Ed does. We have every other one. But all we need is the language from Tony and PPCA to agree. I don't think anybody's fighting this. We all want to do it, but I'm not quite sure what language Tony wanted for it to make it clear.
My only suggestion from a staff perspective is that we own most of the cul-de-sacs or the roundabouts.
All but
throughout. Pardon?
All but one.
All but one, which would be this one, correct?
No, Sienna. We don't own Sienna.
Okay, Sienna, but that's a private road.
Right.
But so and the district owns this road, and so that would be my suggestion. If you're gonna do it, then let's do it for the perpetuity. And
absolutely.
But if we're gonna take it, then we're gonna take it the land, not an easement. I'd rather have them just give the land over to the district. That way there's no pointing fingers if pavers are dirty and slip hazards. Because the easement that the subcommittee recommended is strictly a landscape easement. It is not for pavers or benches or any of that. It's just for landscaping, and all of the items that are associated with landscaping.
And Chelsea, that's exactly why I said we needed the language from Tony, because Tony and I discussed it, as you just said, in order to keep it nice and clean. I asked him to just come up with the language he would recommend that protects everybody.
All right,
Nancy?
so point of order. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
The motion was for the landscape easement.
Correct.
The motion from Ed is to request for staff recommendation number 1, request a landscape easement from PPCA. And also that was the recommendation from the landscape subcommittee.
Has it been second?
No, it has not.
Do we have a second?
All right, that one's dead.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the staff recommendation number 2 and request a conveyance of the parcel from the PPCA to the district.
Contingent upon it being up to snuff. Safety issues addressed.
Yeah.
Up to snuff, we'll put it in the resolution.
Just for you, Peggy.
I'll second that.
Start at that.
Sharon?
Yes.
But
No,
there's more discussion.
We're just,
That's
we have
not
to-
consistent with what Ed is saying is happening already.
But it's also consistent with the ownership of all the cul-de-sacs. So do you consider it a cul-de-sac or do you consider it a park?
it's platted as a parcel, not a.
A parcel is, yeah, nebulous.
You know. Me, there's only just a few people that get advantage of that thing anyway, you know.
Oh, it's so far back
They
there,
oughta-
nobody.
I know, nobody ever goes around it. I mean, I can't even see it in the park,
I go back there.
not very often.
I just go back there just because of this. It's
Yeah.
the first time I've ever been that far back.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
it's got a
What
dog
would be,
station.
what would be the cost to the community if they wanted to maintain it themselves? I mean, the reason I ask that, Portofino, we have 2 cul-de-sacs. It's not our responsibility in Portofino, but we take care of them. We also take care of our own monument.
You guys are the operation, not the.
Well, and I think Bellagio did some same
Yeah.
things. It's the option of that community if they want that to be a certain way. We never had anybody in our community complain about the budget that we pay for those cul-de-sacs.
Well, you also have 2 communities here. The community on the right side of the road and the community on the left side of the road.
Mhm.
You have duplexes on one side and carriage houses on the other.
They can
And
have
they're
a
both
contest.
different, and they're both
Right
different
side.
associations. And
Let me ask, the park, Jen, do you know, the park that's on the north side of Azura? Who maintains the sidewalk and the benches and things like that are in there?
Sidewalks are owned by the district.
No, those
Can she come to the mic, please?
Jen Lewis with KW. I'm not sure who maintains that. I don't think it's under landscaping. I think Doug Xanter's group might, because, no,
that's-
he doesn't, because it's
No.
close right to that preserve.
We have the preserve.
I don't know.
Well, and that's not it, that's that area
see-
is golf course.
I doubt
golf
if
course
anything's ever been done,
property.
Ed. I doubt
But
if
there's a
anything has ever been done in there.
That's, golf course owns the property, but the district has a landscape easement
Okay.
for that part of the property.
Gotcha.
And I think, and my understanding, it's maintained by Ameriscape, but it has sidewalks on it, it has benches, It has everything is similar to this area. I mean, the other option is 3, which is to cease maintenance and let the community association take care of it. Yeah,
I wouldn't like that option. I
Alright,
think that's
so
a bad
We
option.
have a motion on the table. I have a hard stop, so sorry.
so that's
Um,
fine.
There's a motion on the table from Marty, seconded by Peggy to do the option number 2, which is to request conveyance of the parcel from PPCA to the district, provided that the parcel is brought up to standards before we take it over.
That's correct.
All right, call the vote.
I prefer an easement, but,
Can we define standards as just safety and not that it looks pretty? Please? Because that would be thousands probably if the Treviso community wants it up to their standard.
Safety standard.
Safety, thank you.
All right, call the vote.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Aye.
no, I prefer easement over turning the land over to the district.
Aye.
Lauren,
No.
can we abstain on this?
Nope.
Nice try though.
Tried that once before. I'm gonna vote nay.
No,
At 4-1 right now, so it's not gonna pass.
2. I would,
Two.
Or 3-2, sorry, right now. Can't read my own handwriting. It's 3-2. I have 2 yeses and 3 nos.
There is one last comment. I know the vote's over, but consider this. It is a
Vote's
cul-de-sac.
not over.
Well, I thought it was.
Vote's
Okay.
not.
It is a cul-de-sac. It is eligible for $1,500, I think, or $2,500 for each of the 2 communities. So they could put, if they chose to do it, 5,000 in there, if you took it as an item for P-PAC to continue.
But that budget's gone for this year already too, just so you
Okay.
know.
Well, but
That's fine.
whenever it comes up, they would be, according to
Yep.
Mark, he would consider that to be 2 different communities. So they wouldn't go, as to Jen said, we can't bring it up to what they want, which might be 20,000, but we can spend 5.
What's the final vote?
We're waiting for Sharon right now. It's 3 nos and 2 yeses.
yes, no, I don't.
Okay, does not pass. So option number 1 and option number 2 are off the table. So do you want to entertain number 3 or would you like to come up with something else? I have to leave in 3 minutes, so I'm really sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this
Yeah.
until our next
There you go.
meeting and request Tony's input into that, as well as maybe to request Nancy to go back to PPCA and see what their preference would be.
Well, Tony won't give input. Tony's job is to do what we ask. It would be either for the easement or to take conveyance. That's,
So,
Well,
He
we
doesn't-
have, we have easement language. Go ahead,
But-
Chelsea.
yeah, so easement is the easier path. And, but ownership still lies with the community association. The quitclaim deed, which is the other form, is a more permanent document that changes the land changes hands and it gets recorded at the clerk of courts. And so if you did the quitclaim deed and you took that entire parcel, you're taking over the responsibility of everything. Whereas with the landscape easement, or you could expand that easement to other things, but the easement is only what you specify. And if I don't believe that has a time and date certain on it, but my suggestion is take it all, because if we're treating it like Ed's saying, if we're trying to be consistent, I would consider this a cul-de-sac. And again, the community association has to be willing to turn over the land.
So we already voted on that.
So, but my motion is that we table this until our next meeting,
Yeah.
requesting that Nancy engage with the board to find out whether they would be willing to do a conveyance of title. And, I don't know, is there anything else we want in that? Okay, I think that's it.
The maintenance cost is there,
I'll second.
$5,520 a year for the landscaping portion of it.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Alan,
No, I said Peggy made the motion.
Alan second.
Take a vote. Marty, we'll start with you this time.
Nay.
Aye.
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 I.
You didn't say anything.
I know.
John,
No,
Yes.
you can't abstain.
yes or no? To table it? Just to table, yes
Yeah,
or
I'm
no?
gonna table it.
Okay,
I-
so 5-1 to
yes.
table it to March.
4:15.
I made a
Somebody wants to
motion that
leave.
we move this meeting closed.
Any member items in here,
Oh.
the reports?
Sorry.
Just real quickly, where are we at with Matarita? I keep asking this every month.
No.
It said it was.
Matarita pavers are slated to start on the 19th.
I knew it was coming up the next couple
On the
weeks. yeah.
19th?
Yep,
The
gonna-
19th, that
thank
Monday. That 15th, they'll secure his materials. They're supposed to be delivered, and the 19th is the actual start
Thank
date.
you. Thank
When
you.
do the bridge inspections start?
that's on your March agenda, so we'll
March
talk
agenda.
about it then.
Thank you very much.
Yes. As you requested, so yes, it's on your March agenda.
I have, at the safety and security meeting, we discussed, and they basically recommended that we, form a streetlight work group, that would have, like myself as a member of PPAC, Dean as a safety and security, Jen or her replacement, and Daniel, basically to discuss and to provide input into the design for Florida Power and Light so that we don't get into multiple cycles of design and redesign. You know, if we think we want to move forward and Florida Power and Light does a detailed design, we'd like to give them input into that design process rather than having them go off in a vacuum and then come back and say, well, you missed this area of interest and this area of interest and that. And I guess there was, and it seemed like and we might need somebody from landscape because anytime you start doing a lot of work like that, there's going to need to be tree trimming and you're probably going to run into irrigation and stuff. But I guess we need to look for the blessings to create that group that can, in it. Doing it that way where there's a representative of each of the groups, we think it won't have sunshine impacts because we're not really making recommendations, but we're making observations that we can put into, give to Florida Power and Light for their design process.
So be it. You're blessed.
You got it.
Yeah, we don't need an official.
Laura, can we start the next meeting half an hour earlier since we're taking so long?
It's up to you
Okay.
guys. We have to publish the change, so you want to start at 1:30 instead of 2?
Yeah, that would work.
That's fine.
I should be.
Thank you.
It's normally not a big deal, but I have somewhere I have to be, so.
Understand.
Alright.
Do we want to appoint somebody to start renegotiating a contract with KW and Pelican Preserve?
You funny.
You're funny. No doubt.
Oh, we have to save that for
I'll
the
be-
new guy.
I'll be glad to
Who's
volunteer.
the new person?
I guess not.
All right. So I moved to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Yep, I.
all in favor?
4:18, all right,
Woo-hoo.
Nay.
all right.
That was fun.
You were, look at you and me were actually on the same side of a boat.